Welcome to REFED's webinar series, Following the Roadmap to 2030, Taking Action to Reduce U.S. Food Waste by 50%. This is the fifth of a 7-part series that digs deeper into the key action areas from REFED's Roadmap to 2030 and the REFED Insights Engine. This month, we'll be talking about reshaping consumer environments. As we host each new installment every month between now and November, which is right around the corner, we'll not only walk you through what the data is telling us, but we'll also be assembling a team of experts who will help us bring that data to life through their lived experiences and perspectives. So if you haven't already done so, I'd love to encourage everyone on the line today to sign up for the last 2 installments of the series, and we'll go ahead and put that registration link in the chat for you now. I also want to take a moment to recognize our media partner for the series, Food Tank. They work to educate, inspire, advocate, and create change in the food system. You can find them at foodtank.com, and we thank them for collaborating with us. Now, as many of you know, REFED is a national nonprofit working to end food loss and waste across the U.S. food system by advancing data-driven solutions. Our vision is a sustainable, inclusive, and resilient food system that makes the best use of the food that we grow. In February of this year, REFED introduced 2 new and free resources that are available right now on our website: the REFED Insights Engine and the Roadmap to 2030. These resources help support the food system's efforts to cut food waste by 50% by the year 2030. The Insights Engine is an online hub for data and insights about food waste, featuring a detailed cost-benefit analysis of more than 40 food waste reduction solutions, estimates on the causes and impacts of food waste in the U.S. and broken out on a state level, built from analyzing more than 50 public and proprietary data sets. And finally, a directory of more than 850 solution providers ready to partner on food waste reduction initiatives. We also introduced an updated version of our 2016 Roadmap to Reduce U.S. Food Waste called the Roadmap to 2030. It introduces a framework with 7 key action areas to help guide the food system in taking action to achieve the 2030 reduction goal, each of which is a monthly discussion focus for this webinar series that we're hosting today. And the solutions we analyzed in the Insights Engine fall under these 7 key action areas of the Roadmap to 2030. REFED's analysis shows that by implementing these solutions with an annual investment of approximately $14 billion, we'd see a reduction of 45 million tons of food waste. That's more than half of what's currently generated each year. And there's a range of other benefits. Like greenhouse gas emission reductions, reducing food waste is one of the top solutions for climate change mitigation. There would also be water savings, meals recovered, and jobs created. And the net financial benefit for all of this would be approximately $73 billion per year. Our goal with this webinar series is to get all of this information off the page and bring it to life so that it can support you in your food waste reduction efforts. Our previous webinars covered the first 4 key action areas in the roadmap: optimize the harvest, enhance product distribution, refine product management, and maximize product utilization. Today, we'll be talking about the 5th key action area, reshaping consumer environments. When we say reshape consumer environments, what we mean is driving consumers towards better food management and less waste by creating shopping, cooking, and eating environments that promote these behaviors. There's also a big opportunity to shift our overall culture to place more value on food and to make sure that people truly understand the implications of food waste for our environment, economy, and more. This is information, from REFED's Insights Engine. It shows that most uneaten food happens at the household level, more than 37%, compared to the almost 21% that's generated at the farm level. But the important thing to note here is that we can't lay all of this waste at the feet of consumers alone. Yes, they're the ones that are actually letting our food go uneaten, but like we've said in our previous webinars, what happens at the other stages of the supply chain can directly influence what happens at later stages. In the case of the food that goes uneaten by consumers, that is especially true. And that's what makes this key action area so exciting. Retail, food service establishments, and homes are environments where food businesses and others can shift the narrative around purchasing, consumption, and food management to inspire more positive action amongst consumers. Our Insights Engine analysis shows that by reshaping consumer environments, businesses can divert 7 million tons of food waste annually. This would cut greenhouse gas emissions by 34 million metric tons and save more than 1.6 trillion gallons of water each year. The solutions to reshape consumer environments that we've detailed on the Insights engine would cost approximately $1.4 billion each year to implement, but there'd be a huge annual estimated financial benefit of $27.4 billion. So how can we take meaningful action to do this? What you're seeing on the screen now are some of the top solutions for reshaping consumer environments based on net financial benefit and total food waste tons diverted. This information came from Refed's Insights engine as well, and it's where you can also find these solutions ranked on other impact metrics like reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, water saved, and meals recovered. In dining environments, solutions that encourage less wasteful consumption patterns can include offering smaller portion sizes, using smaller plates, or removing trays in efforts to minimize consumers taking more than they will eat. In shopping environments, solutions include integrating meal planning support into customer assistance or creating promotions that don't promote overpurchasing. More broadly, awareness and education campaigns are an important solution to help shift our culture towards greater appreciation for our food and the resources that went into growing it. So what is needed to adopt these and other food waste reduction solutions? We'd like to say it's a combination of motivation, stakeholder alignment, and funding. I mentioned earlier that $1.4 billion is needed each year to implement solutions to reshape consumer environments. And we estimate that approximately $900 million of that should come from corporate finance, given that they require corporate decisions with potential financial benefits. That said, government funding plays an important role too, since even though this is one of the most impactful action areas to fight food waste, the associated solutions can be harder to fund from more traditional sources of capital, as corporations wouldn't necessarily be viewing this type of spending from a return on investment perspective, but rather as a broad ESG or CSR strategy and for brand building. And philanthropic funding can help small to medium-sized businesses like restaurants cover the upfront cost of solutions like trayless dining. As we talk about financing though, it's important to reiterate here what I said just a few moments ago. Our analysis shows that investing in solutions to reshape consumer environments can result in an annual return of $27.4 billion. You can visit our capital provider page on refed.com for more information. So what does this actually equate to on the ground? Well, that's what our panelists are here to discuss today. And with that, I'm excited to introduce our moderator for today's discussion. Brett Jenks is president and CEO of RARE, a global leader in social change for the environment that has helped thousands of people across hundreds of communities in over 60 countries shift their behaviors and practices to protect the nature that sustains our lives, livelihoods, and communities. At RARE, he's created large-scale global partnerships with organizations including Bloomberg Philanthropies, the Nature Conservancy, and the Environmental Defense Fund. And now he's focused on helping the organization expand climate-smart solutions through programs like Fish Forever, the world's largest philanthropically supported coastal fishery recovery effort, and Make It Personal, a breakthrough climate strategy designed to get the U.S. back on track to hit its target under the Paris Agreement. Thank you so much for being here today, Brett. And with that, I will hand it over to you.
Great, thank you, Lily, and thanks to Refed for hosting this. I'm amazed there's almost 200 people on this webinar. So thanks to all of you for joining us today. I have the pleasure of introducing a really distinguished panel and then asking them a few questions to get them started. I think let me introduce everybody first, and then I'll kick this off with a little bit more about RARE's work and why behavioral insights are just such a powerful and underutilized force in the space. So first up, we have Dr. Richard Swannell. Richard is an environmental scientist with a strong track record leading teams to tackle plastic pollution, to reduce food waste, and deliver more sustainable practices within business. He leads what's called RAPS. He works for RAP, you can see it there on his screen. RAPS International work, working with partners in about 25 countries, delivering systemic change. This is a nonprofit organization based in the UK, and they are working hard to reduce food waste around the world. We also have Priyanka Malhotra. Priyanka is a senior marketing manager at Unilever, where she manages Hellmann's brand equity. You will all be receiving a free dose of Hellmann's in the mail for your participation today, thanks to Priyanka. She leads Unilever's Asian Business Network Business Resource Center, and she's a proud alum of University of Michigan, go Wolverines, and University of Texas in Austin, Hook 'em Horns. So she's also a mom of a 5-year-old, Roshni. So welcome, Priyanka. Thanks for joining us. We also have Sophie Egan. Sophie is an internationally recognized leader at the intersection of food, health, climate, and she serves as Director of Strategy for Food for Climate League. She's also co-director of the Menus of Change University Research Collaborative. I think we've all seen some of her work over the years, and senior advisor for sustainable food systems at for Stanford Diving. And she's got a great deal of experience and is also an author in this space. So thank you so much, Sophie, for joining us today. So with this great panel, we've got a lot to talk about because this is a really challenging behavioral landscape. I want to start off with a really quick story, and that is just, I didn't know we'd be even working on food waste at RARE just a few years ago. And when we launched what's called the Center for Behavior and the Environment, which is essentially a group of, we have an advisory group of some of the best behavioral economists, social psychologists, neuroscientists in the world. We have been hiring, the best graduating postdocs from some of the leading programs around the world to join our team. And we've been investing in this center because we see so many opportunities within the conservation and climate space to bring behavioral insights into all of our strategies. And I think what you'll hear today through this conversation are little glimpses of the power of behavioral insights when brought to bear on a problem as pernicious and complicated and challenging and personal as food waste. So a quick story to illustrate what this looks like. We had just launched the Center for Behavior and the Environment, and we decided to host a big event at Dickinson College in Pennsylvania. And so we had a bunch of students and a bunch of visitors, experts, luminaries on stage. We had, I can't remember, 400 or 500 people in the audience. And it was sort of a pep rally for climate change and behavior change. And as a result of that, the psychology department immediately linked up in this university. The psychology department was co-housed with the sustainability department. They had never really worked together. As of Monday after that event, they started working together. The second thing that happened was the head of sustainability came to us and said, hey, could we just do one pilot with you to test out some of these behavioral insights? We would like to reduce food waste on campus. So I asked my team, I said, do we know anything about food waste? No, but humans are humans, behavioral insights are behavioral insights. If they know something about food waste on campus, we'll help them figure it out. So almost like a consulting group, we teamed up and held a workshop for just 2 days. During that workshop, we taught a bunch of behavioral insights, things like the fact that most conservationists think in terms of policy, think in terms of governance and the rules and regulations. We think in terms of information, not thinking that people will change if we just tell them what they need to know. And we think about material incentives. Can we provide a rebate, or a financial incentive? And our theory is that we're missing 3 big buckets of insights. Emotional appeals, because we're people, we're incredibly emotional. Social incentives, because nothing drives our behavior like what we see others doing. And then choice architecture, which is a fancy word for making it really easy. So with those new buckets of insight in mind, we partnered with Dickinson, and then we went back to work. So we went home to Arlington, Virginia. We all got back to working on our fisheries and smallholder ag and other kinds of climate change. They wrote us a letter a year later and said, we just wanted to report out on changes on campus. They said, first of all, because of the need to build social proof before social pressure, we got the football team to become the leading proponents on campus of food waste. So this wasn't just the tree huggers, this is their words, not mine. It wasn't just the tree huggers, it was the football team, and they led the charge. And then we had everybody, try food before they took a plate. We got rid of trays so that you had to just carry your plates. So no trays, no massive loading. We shrunk the size of the plates, and all of a sudden, in 1 year, 30% reduction in food waste. And lo and behold, we thought, wow, there really is something powerful about emotional appeals, having the right spokespeople, having the right messengers, the newly converted, thinking about social incentives, and then changing the environment in which we make decisions. So when we come to consumer behavior, I think this is even more challenging. So we're going to need to up the ante today, because most of us eat at home with a few, very small humans as our only witnesses. There's not a lot of social proof. There's not a lot of observability. So this is a taller order. It's a harder challenge. And so with that, we want to begin to dig into, so what does this look like, and what can we learn from Richard and from Priyanka and from Sophie as we all embark on our own food waste reduction strategies. So let's just go around the horn. I'm gonna pressure you all to be succinct, unlike me, and very direct, pointed, and we'll do a quick round robin. Tell us, let's go in reverse order. Sophie, you're first, then Priyanka, then Richard. And here's the question. Tell us a little bit about your group and your work. What are you doing to reshape consumer environments to reduce food waste? Lightning round to start with.
Great. Hi, everyone. Sophie Egan, co-director of the Menus of Change University Research Collaborative. This is a groundbreaking consortium of over 68 colleges and universities all around the US and increasingly international who actually do almost exactly what Brett described. We use campus dining halls as living laboratories for behavior change, specifically understanding a research agenda focused on plant-forward diets, reducing food waste, and overall drivers of consumer food choices. So within that bucket of understanding how do we most effectively reduce food waste, we recently released a really exciting new multi-site study. We have in this model the ability to replicate, so we can understand, does something hold up at every university? Is it something distinct to Dickinson or distinct to Stanford or Cal or whichever university, or is it more generalizable? And interestingly, in our most recent study published in Foods, bottom line takeaways, 2 untapped opportunities. 1, Brett already hit the nail on the head, portion size. It's intuitive, but it actually really works. It makes a huge difference. The other, you mentioned sampling. The reason that is effective is boosting confidence. The greater familiarity, the less risk, the less perceived fear of not having enough options that you're going to be satisfied by. So we have a larger research agenda, but in the interest of being succinct, I'll put it in the chat. That's our latest study, and we have a whole host in the pipeline to really continue to understand what are those most effective ways to use food choice architecture in dining halls around this question of reducing food waste. That was a
great way to kick it off, Sophie. Thank you so much. And did not mean to steal your thunder on the food waste on campus story, but we look forward to hearing more from you. So Priyanka, let's hear from you. Kick this off.
Brett, you already introduced me by saying that I make delicious mayonnaise, so that's what I do. So I'm Priyanka Malhotra at Hellmann's, which is a brand at Unilever. And when we think about food waste, the simple thing we are doing is we are encouraging everybody to make taste and not waste. So we ask everybody to open their refrigerators and look at all the ingredients that they have. And if they want to, of course, I'd love that, use some mayonnaise to make a delicious meal out of it. But actually, with the support of Richard's team at WRAP, we have created a behavior change program, which is what I'm super excited about. And I'm at that crossroad, but from a marketer, I'm also becoming a psychologist and a behavior scientist now. But that's basically, in a nutshell, what we are working on.
Great. Thank you, Priyanka. Richard, take it away.
Oh, thank you, Brett. I'm delighted to be here. And my name is Richard Swannell. I work for WRAP, as everybody's talked about. We work in about 25 countries around the world, helping reduce food loss and food waste. And one of the things we did when we first started in this area is come up with Love Food, Hate Waste campaign. Unilever, one of our key partners in developing that. And what that was based on is insights into our behavior in the home. What is causing food waste and what behaviors do we need to influence in order to change that behavior? Let me just give you 3 examples about where we focused. One, we found out there was 1 million tons a year in the UK of leftovers thrown away every single year. So we ran a small campaign called Love Your Leftovers, which is all focused on helping people reduce their, and actually asking for people's ideas, which we put up on the website to say, here's great ways you can make your curry go for longer, actually reuse those vegetables that look a bit, use your leftovers and all the way through. Now that worked extremely well in terms of reducing the amount of leftovers that we all threw away in the UK. A second area is getting rid of buy one, get one frees. Now, this is something in the UK we had a lot of. You could go into store, you could buy a pound of carrots and get another pound of carrots for the same price. Now, if you stop doing that and actually said, tell you what, here's an idea, here's a half price pound of carrots. Now, that's the same offer, the same value, but it doesn't lead to the same food waste. That had a big impact. And the final one was on date labels. And when we did the research in store, we found that actually many packs had 2 date labels. One was a best before or a used by, and another one was a date by which you had to change the stock. So those 2 stock labels made it really confusing. So could we come up with one label and make it really, really big? And that's exactly what we did. We actually had a big date label that said best before or used by, and no other date label on it at all. That also then would track people's understanding, and that showed it had a real impact. Now, to take all that together, what Love Food, Hate Waste has helped, with all the help of the businesses that supported this campaign, has helped reduce food waste in the home in the UK by 31%. That's 1.4 million tonnes per year, less food waste every single year. And just building on Lily's numbers, that's $6 billion less food waste thrown away every single year. So this approach can work. Not only can it work in hospitality and food service, as Priyanka, Sophie, and yourself have said, it can also work in the home.
Fantastic. Thank you. So, when you think about just how many tons that is, how much money that is, you think about Unilever and its reach, universities across the world, and all of your work, Richard, it becomes mind-boggling to try to tease together strategy with theory and then all of these behavioral insights. I've seen a codex of 183 individual consumer insights, and you start to there's no way any of us are going to read all the literature out there on behavior change that could be applied to the space. So I'd like to ask you, we'll go around the horn again, Sophie to Priyanka, then back to Richard. Can you just share with us sort of concisely, as succinctly as possible, sort of your either theory of change or one or two of just the most exciting insights that you would not want anyone to leave this webinar today without? Sophie, why don't you go first?
Sure. So there are, as you indicated, many, many different kind of models of behavior change. But one that I have really gravitated toward is actually from a partner organization of Menus of Change University Research Collaborative, which is called Food for Climate League, and I'm also in a leadership role there. And really it distills down the core human needs of control, community, and purpose. And the idea there is that broadly in the past, climate smart eating has only been positioned to really connect with purpose, right? Waste less food because the planet is counting on you. And if you don't do the climate smart thing, you're a bad person. And really those purpose-driven appeals, leaving out the opportunity to connect to control and community. And this is a huge aha because it enables us to really embrace the opportunity to democratize sustainable eating, including reducing food waste. And it's a key insight that's now in a new study that the Menus of Change University Research Collaborative is doing with Food for Climate League, all around labeling and understanding whether or not sort of iconography and menu labels around climate smart choices can lead people to choose those. Now, that's not specific to the context of food waste, but there are many elements that as you design campaigns going forward could really draw from that. The last thing that I will mention is that we have to remember that people are products of their environments. And fundamentally, when talking about behavior change, my number one sort of, or my own training and background, my number one piece of advice is to not think of this as purely willpower. We have to stop putting the onus on individuals, and the blame and shame game is not going to get us anywhere. People become defensive. Instead, you have to create the enabling environments through cultural norms, through choice architecture, so that these options, the ways that we want folks to behave, are easy, are normalized, as opposed to making the norm be what it currently is, which tends to be some kind of sacrifice or something you have to give up or something you have to go out of your way to do. So the more that we think about all of us as being products of our environments, coming from a human-centered design approach and meeting people where they're at, the far better off all of our behavior change efforts will be.
Okay, so forget the shame and the blame, and there's a great study about chocolate cake and pride and shame, and the opportunity to leverage people's sense of power and pride instead of shame in order to motivate and reward what we would call good behavior in this case. So Priyanka, talk about your major levers of behavior change from Unilever's standpoint.
Yeah. So Unilever, we have 5 levers of change, which many of us have learned because we did marketing campaigns and we wanted you to use the shampoo that we were coming up with. Now I feel really proud that I'm actually working to convince you to do something that is actually going to have a massive positive impact on the climate versus just using a shampoo. But I'll break down the steps for you. So the first one is to make it easy. And we will talk more about the behavior change program specifically for food waste that we've created. But the first thing you need to do is make it very simple. So how do you look at the most important barrier that people are facing and break that barrier down? The second thing we need to do is make it understood. So understand what is the actual issue. So what, for instance, what we are saying is just track your waste. Just open the refrigerator and see what is it that you might be about to throw away. So make it easy, make it understood. The third thing we need to do is focus on making it desirable. So you want the action to be desirable. And that's why the component that we have, of course, Facebook and Instagram, etc., have helped us with is how do you make the commitment public? So I publicly am going to say that I am reducing food waste and, sort of creating that desirability of that. The third thing, which we've also talked about, is making it rewarding. So, giving some sort of reward and reinforcement, positive reinforcement, if you will. And then the fifth thing that we are working on, many of our campaigns, but specifically the behavior change program for food waste, is how do you make it a habit? So what we have done is in this 5-week campaign that we have created, a program we've created, every week you are doing a mission to reduce food waste. We give you a mission and we say let's say the first week is actually the mission of your kids are the judges of what you're going to make from your fridge tonight. That might be the first mission. We repeat that mission for 4 weeks. Then we come back to you after 8 weeks and check in on, have you been continuing that pattern or not? So really thinking about how you make it a habit. So again, just going back to those 5 levers, it's how do you make it easy? How do you make it understood? How do you make it desirable? Incorporate rewards, and then making it into a habit. So that's the 5 levers of behavior change that we work with.
Great. Thank you, Pri. That's it's great to have a short list, of what to do. I think at some point we're going to get to the how, and maybe we'll ideate about, maybe we'll design a quick problem that we can all solve together here on the fly. So Richard, your turn. A couple of just the most important behavioral insights that you're leveraging in your work.
Thanks, Brett. And yeah, just to build on what Priyanka and Sophie's just said, and one of the key things that influenced love food, hate waste when we started off with this was the insights that when we asked everybody in the UK whether they threw food away, 90% said no. And yet you look at what Lily was saying in terms about the numbers in the US, and in the UK, the numbers are even higher. 70% of all food waste post-farm gate is thrown away in the homes. So that is the critical bit. That it builds on what Priyanka said, is actually how do you build the connection to the issue if people don't think they're actually doing it? Now, there are other ways you can also influence behavior, but if you don't get over that, that makes it really hard. And we tend to we've got a model we tend to use, which is COMBI, which I know is widely used around, which is giving people the capability, the opportunity, and the motivation to act. And to give you an example of this, one of the causes of food waste that the data told us was that actually people often have their fridge temperature too high. A really simple thing, but it was leading to hundreds of thousands of tons per year of food being thrown away. So how can we encourage people? Well, one option, of course, is to make it blindingly obvious that the temperature isn't quite right. For example, could you have a light on in the fridge, a red light that says, oh, it's not the right temperature? Or a beautiful one that's been suggested, a singing egg. You open the fridge and the egg sings at you and tells you, oh my goodness, the fridge is too warm. And then to give them the capability, many fridges have a different way of controlling the temperature. Some fridges, it's colder if you go higher from the 1 to 5 scale. Some fridges, it's colder if you go lower. So then we produced a website which actually has got all the fridges that we know are sold in the UK, and it actually has detailed guidance on how do you reduce the temperature of your fridge. So you make it simple for people to act, building on what Priyanka just said. simple is the way to do it. Make it as simple and rewarding as possible, because if you do that, the food lasts for longer, you've got more chance to use it, and you're going to save lots of money. The average UK family can save about between $80 and $100 a month just through making the best use of the food they already buy.
You say $80 to $100 a month for the average UK family? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So listening to each of you, it seems like there are obviously some very common threads, which are well rooted in behavioral science. You're talking about prompts, you're talking about saliency, you're talking about motivation, you're talking about, obviously choice architecture. To get beyond the theory, to get into to motivate people to take even greater interest in the practice, could you give us just quickly, Richard, we'll go in reverse order, Richard and then Sophie and then Pri, just a specific result that you think demonstrates the power of behavior, the irrefutable power of behavior change in addressing consumer food waste. Richard, what pops to mind?
So for us, I mean, there's loads of things I think which is well worth thinking about. I mean, overall, the fact that love food, hate waste, coupled with the businesses that were supported in the UK, and it's also operational in Canada as well, and indeed in Australia, that actually has helped citizens reduce food waste by 1.4 million tons every single year, shows the power overall of a concerted behavior change campaign that is also supported by businesses who change things in store and change things on pack that help people make that change. So I think that's a really big, and a classic case is in terms of date labels. The date label one story, as I said, it involved us. When we first did this work, we found that people just did not understand the difference between best before and use by. And they look at a best before and they go, oh, crikey, that's going out to its date. I need to throw that away, bang. But best before means it's fine afterwards. So can you run a campaign telling about how wonderful and all the things you can do with food past its best before date, and how wonderful it is, and how I and others around it, and how everyone, a new social norm, we eat food after its best before date because it's fine. It's great. So using those sorts of things, and then, but on use by, now we were having people actually saying, oh, use by, it's tomorrow evening at midnight. I'll throw it away today, just in case. And sort of saying to people and giving people confidence that actually you can freeze, you put right up to the end of the use by date, and it's absolutely fine to eat. And then if you freeze it, you buy yourself time. The freezer is your friend in that context. And by doing those combinations of things, we saw a significant increase in understanding across the UK population of what those labels meant, and indeed less food waste as a result of that understanding.
Right. I think we saw that in Lily's opening. Labeling was one of the top 5 or 6 solution according to their analysis.
Precisely.
Sophie?
Yeah, so again, to go to that study that I mentioned that was published in Foods this year, 2 main takeaways in terms of what we saw from a results perspective. So one was that boosting confidence did result in less food waste. People reported that for the foods that people reported having greater familiarity with, they wasted less of it. So what does that mean? It means that sampling really works. It means that trying something multiple times in multiple recipes. And this absolutely is sort of a replicable strategy. This was in 5 different universities, a variety of demographic and psychographic profiles of these students, right, of the participants. But it's also a strategy that could work in the home. Also just understanding what are the most popular dishes. And in general, it stems from the hypothesis that really waste is caused by uncertainty. And also by variety seeking. And so that's the second key strategy, which is, again, it sounds obvious, but is really critically important in terms of the enabling environment, which is reducing portion size. What we found in the study is that when someone else made the portion for you, people wasted less. And that's key because it, again, goes to the point that you can't just put the onus on the individual. We don't know what a reasonable portion is. We also don't know, there's obviously some hunger cues and questions of, eating with your eyes and so forth. But in reality, if you're trying to enjoy a variety of food options, a smaller portion size enables you to do so without leaving a lot of waste. So really those 2 key points of reducing portion size, ensuring that you are actually setting the portion size. And we have a whole food choice architecture playbook actually for Stanford Dining, which is the co-lead of the Means of Change University Research Collaborative. Very, very specific strategies in this playbook. Plates, not more than 10 ounces. every single dessert option is down to the level of, inches. And this kind of standardization can make an enormous difference because, again, you're taking away all of those elements that are the underlying reason. Because, again, people don't want to waste food, but they need that help. They need us to create the portion size and the confidence and familiarity for them.
Really succinct. Thank you, Sophie. Pri, I'm going to circle back on this, but I want to. Do you want to add anything at this point, Pri?
I can actually come back to it. The only thing that I would say is we obviously have seen from the work that you reduce food waste and you will reduce sort of the amount of money that you throw away with food waste. The other benefit we have seen of all the work that we have done is that people actually feel empowered. And there's such a strong emotional reaction to that sort of when you finish the mission. Yes, I've saved some money. Yes, I've saved food, but actually I can be creative. I have actually made a difference. That is such an immense amount of reward that we have seen with the program. And we see it also with Love Food, Hate Waste, that people really feel that they are different now. They can make change, which I think is a beautiful benefit to have from the programs that we put in place.
Yeah, that's a great tip to something I want to dig into, and that's identity. But before we go there, it just occurs to me that what's the ecosystem of food waste reduction? When you think about all the NGOs and corporations and consulting firms and academics. We talk right here. We have NGOs. We have Fortune 500 company. We've got somebody working across multiple universities. So you've got residential, corporate, shopping, consuming at home. What's to keep us from crowdsourcing, even open sourcing all these tools and techniques and behavioral insights so that we could create a kind of do-it-yourself kit so that anybody who wants to reduce food waste, whether you're a dad with 2 kids at home and you want to reduce food waste, or whether you're the head of dining services at Dickinson College, what's available currently, and why isn't that level of specificity and those DIY toolkits? What's standing in the way of us sharing all of these brilliant insights?
I'll just quickly make a plug for Refed. I mean, the Insights Engine is 100% the first real stab at that, I would argue. And I know this because we at MCRC, Refed is a research collaborator, we contributed data to it. So you saw those strategies listed there. That's not coincidental. We submit our data. What I've heard in collaborating with Refed over the years is that from a corporate level, often that data is not made available. And so it's really a question of who's willing to share the data. The last thing I'll mention is that we talked about labeling or communication or narrative, and storytelling is a key kind of branch of this. And you have to tailor by audience. So that's one area that I think has yet to really occur, is that it's not a one size fits all. So yes, we need to crowdsource and collect all the insights, whether you're the dad or the dining director, but at the same time, we need to tailor those strategies to really resonate with different audiences of focus.
Yeah, just before you go, Richard, I really like what you just said there, Sophie. To me, that's key because if you're going to use human-centered design, and I know you're affiliated with Stanford. Sarah Stein Greenberg, who runs the D School, is on RARE's board of directors. And you think about human-centered design and the empathy that's required to customize a solution for an individual audience, which is what Unilever and others in the consumer packaged goods space do probably better than anybody on earth. So it always needs to be customized. And so the question becomes, what's the sort of DIY process almost for taking the insights and then going on the journey so that every practitioner can become a better designer and produce better outcomes? That's my advertorial. But by the way, Refed is going to send you all T-shirts for that great marketing, Sophie. Back to you, Richard. Go ahead.
Well, just to build on that, Brett, I mean, actually with Unilever and indeed WRI and indeed UNEP and other partners, we actually ran a workshop about 3 months ago where we dug down into exactly what is the established best practice for this consumer side. So I'm specifically talking about the consumer side here. with the idea of saying, so because there are a couple of campaigns around the world that have done extremely well and others that haven't. And what have we learned? And also some of the campaigns have actually had good times and bad times. What they learned from that. So we brought all that together. We brought all the practitioners we could find into one room. And the result of that is we're now writing a playbook together, which will be published actually in a couple of months. I'm doing exactly what you suggested, which is in essence, that high level, here are some things that we know that it's all driven by data. Building on Sophie's point, you need that insights, you need the segmentations, you need to understand the behaviors. Particularly, let's not assume what Brits think is exactly what Americans think. Let's not assume that Dutch people think the same way as Australians and Mexicans. So we need to make sure that we've got evidence that's specific to the cultural context, because we're sure as hell that actually our relationship with food is very culturally defined. Nonetheless, are there things that we can actually, are there processes and approaches that can be shared? Yes, we think they are, and we're on the case.
Right.
The only other piece I would add, Brett, is that even from we've been talking about the consumer end, but even when we're talking about the factories or the distribution centers, etc., many organizations and companies have come together under 10, 20, 30, where we are now sharing information and data, best practices amongst each other. So, for my end, Hellmann's is sharing with Kroger Foundation, we're sharing with Walmart Foundation. What can they do? What can we do at our distribution centers that will help reduce food waste? So the data sharing is definitely happening. And I think that there's a newfound sort of humble view towards data that we should share it and everybody will benefit versus we should keep it. So
thanks, Priya. That was literally something I was just about to ask you about, sharing among corporations. There's a good question from Marianne Maltais Guilbeault. How do companies see reducing food waste, since it means customers would end up buying less? I always felt like back when I was a kid, you'd squeeze the toothpaste and it would go all over the floor. And I thought, what, as I got older, I thought, well, maybe I need to get more skills, but maybe that's a great way of selling more toothpaste. So how does Unilever look at food waste in that regard?
So we look at it in a couple of different ways. So the one thing that we've talked about more is, the consumer end, which is make, taste, not waste. So open your fridge, use what you've got. If you want to use mayonnaise, you go ahead and use mayonnaise. We're calling it a magic touch. Now that could be anything. That's one piece. The other piece that we are actually working on quite a bit is policy. So Richard talked to it about in the United Kingdom. In America, we don't have standardized date labels, right? So 41 states in the country all have different labels. We are working, and Hellmann's and Unilever are investing a lot of time and resources in working with the government, working with ReFed, working with Harvard to actually have a standardized date label so that people don't waste as much. And I can tell you that does not reap a significant benefit to Unilever or to Hellmann's, because we are already doing standardized date labeling. This is something that we are doing for the better of sort of the planet. We think very often now about not just selling more, but really having a positive impact, because we know that once a consumer feels and once a person feels that whether a brand or a person has made them feel more empowered, has made them feel better, they will stick with them longer. So there's definitely that relationship that we know we can have. But for sure, we are much more thinking about, how much are we going to sell? Because we know that there will be no planet to sell if we don't have, if we don't make a difference. And Unilever, for sure, we think about that very often. And the other point I would just end with is that I'm not a sustainability person from Unilever. I am the brand owner. So I think that's a little bit different from other companies that you will see, is that, they will generally have a sustainability lead who's representing the company. But here we have the brand and hence, quote unquote, the pockets that are representing the issue. And this is my daily job to work on food waste and to ensure that everybody through Hellmann's knows that they can make taste, not waste.
Right. Well, thank you. We have probably, I'm guessing, about 5 minutes left with the panel. So let's just do a speed round here. I'm going to ask you 2 questions to close this out, and I'll ask you to do it as quickly as possible. So we'll go in with Richard and then Priya and then Sophie. Think about personal motivations and think about human identity, personal identity. What is useful? What have you found most useful in terms of leveraging identity as a force for change? Richard, go ahead.
Okay, so when we've done segmentation in the UK, one of the things we identified is that one of the highest wasting groups is the 18 to 30-year-olds, basically because they don't have the skills. And they end up often they don't have the time or dedicate the time to it. And so they end up with ridiculous amounts of food waste. But also, interestingly, they're very motivated to do something about it. And one of the big motivations, particularly over the last 12 months, is actually the link to climate change. Doing things to actually tackle climate change is suddenly really, really important to this generation. And so we ran a Food Waste Action Week last week. And the key theme of that is that food waste feeds climate change. And use that as a motivator directly to that target audience, backed up by simple hints and tips of what you can do to make the full use of the food that you buy. So I think that the critical bit there and the messages were, buy what you need, eat what you buy. Nice and simple, nice and straightforward. And it had a great impact. We had 100 companies support it. It was just fabulous. But it's that focus on exactly what is motivating the segment of the population that is going to most help you hit the target of halving food loss and waste by 2030.
Right. Thanks, Richard.
I can go next. Yeah.
Go ahead.
So the big thing that we found is that with whatever segment you're talking about now, whether they think that sort of saving money is their motivation or whether they talk about saving food and the planet is their motivation, the bucket or the umbrella is about being resourceful. So I, as a mother, want to be resourceful with the time and money I have. If I was a single woman, I would also be one concerned about the time and the energy and the planet that I have. But all of us at the end of the day want to feel resourceful. We want to feel that we can do the best with what we have. And that's the sort of the insight that we are working on. And that's the reward also, I should say. It's not the insight, it's really the reward that you do these few things and you will feel resourceful and hence empowered. That's.
Right. Thanks,
so well said. I love that. So I'll just toss in that, ultimately identity is shaped by values. And these values can be both conscious and subconscious. My first book, Devoured, was all about American food culture and the values that drive daily relationships to food. And really what you find is that it's individualism, which leads to customization, it's productivity and work ethic, and it's innovation and forward-thinking desire for new experiences. That is dramatically different, to Richard's point, from other countries and cultures. And so we have both our individual identities and value sets, but we're also shaped by and we shape our broader cultural identities. And so the more that we understand, we bring to light what the subconscious, many people in the US don't even realize how individualistic, for example, our society is, because it's a more subconscious value. When you ask people directly, what do you value? It's to Priya's point. More often they'll say things like taste, cost, health, convenience, feeding my family, right? And ultimately what the opportunities are, well, to answer your question, what we found most effective is in helping people connect the dots between their identity and the options that are available to them. So often it's just that the linkage isn't being made. The example that I'll give you most obviously is university students, right? We know Gen Z professes to care hugely about climate, exactly what Richard said. And yet in our own environments, we so often see that they will waste lots of food, not in our specific dining halls per se, but that they're not seeing the opportunity to take action on climate change through what they do related to food. And so we see this huge opportunity for proof of concept, if you will, helping people practice in their 4 years of a critical food identity formation that occurs during one's college years, practice those habits. Oh, I was full after I took a smaller portion. Oh, I was satisfied after I, didn't have an entire tray worth of food and so forth. And just become so habitualized that these are the default ways they act day after day. And then they in turn will raise their children in these ways. They'll interact as employees. Maybe they start companies. The ripple effects can affect millions beyond them. And so it's really that kind of network effect that can occur if we help them really gain that practice during that critical identity formation period of college.
So helpful, so helpful. So Okay, just a couple minutes to go now. Last question, and that one is, given all of these insights, given all of your collective experience, it seems Rare has done some of our own research, and what we see is that food waste, like driving electric vehicles, like solar rooftop, like buying carbon offsets, we are still in the single digits in terms of interest, and at least in the American population. Food waste is not terribly salient for most people. And when we think about our theory of change, saliency is the biggest hurdle with something like food waste. So if we were to just say, okay, let's magically, Priya and Hellman's, she's going to put up $1 billion for a campaign in the United States. And that $1 billion, we're going to spend however we want. So based on what you've learned so far, if the number one goal is making food waste more salient, I'm going to give you each 30 seconds. Describe the campaign. What's been missing? What do we need? Is it, from your world, in your words, 30 seconds, and just take it in any order you want. What would make food waste salient, and what would a campaign look like?
So if I have the kickoff of that and just say, I think the critical thing here is building what Sophie just said. We really need to understand the causes of food waste in the US in order to be able to target a campaign sensibly at that. So we want to understand and segment the population so that we understand which segments actually waste the most, what are they wasting and why. And I can write down a list of what it could be, but let's make sure we know. And once we know, we can then design the interventions. And sure as hell, it'll fit into two categories. It'll say, buy what you need, eat what you buy. That's really the fundamentals. But exactly which things you need to do and which segments of the populations you need to tackle, that's what the data will tell you. And I'll give you a great example. When I look at the Dutch data and the UK data, there's one segment of society that is just not interested in this. They will not do it. They're about 17% of the population, and they just don't care. And it doesn't matter what you tell them, they don't care. So you don't even need to focus on them. But you've got the 18 to 30s, the young families with children, very open to this sort of change, very open to doing it. Focus on the segments that you know are going to make a difference and nail it. That's how I would recommend it.
I could not agree more, because my campaign would start, and in fact, Food for Climate League is eager to work on such an effort, would start with the massive need finding process, exactly to what Richard said. And then we know we're equipped with what the needs are, and it's really just how you position the front door or the on-ramp. Same general roadmap that we've all been talking about, but what's the entry point? And as soon as you know, you can speak to that need. I have a need for creative expression. I'm going to speak to upcycling and the amazing array of ways that you can use all the food in your fridge. Okay, you have a strong budgetary, practical mindset. Your needs are really around cost containment. Great, I'm going to tailor the message so that it really speaks to that. How many billions of dollars, $800 a month for your household savings, whatever it is, and so forth, so that the way that you're exposed to the information, the saliency comes from, my needs are being met through this. This is not something I have to do extra. It's an automatic win-win for myself. And then in the aggregate, with each of those splices, if you've ever seen like the normal curve, it all adds up, but each segmentation is being met where they're at. And that's the whole spirit of human-centered design, as you spoke about, Brett, around empathy. But that paired with your football team idea, which is influencers, right? Making this so prevalent, so everywhere that you can't escape it. And that's the piece that hasn't yet occurred, and I'm excited to see it.
All right, we have 10 seconds left.
10 seconds. I will quickly, 10 seconds. I would say that so what we did was, we didn't have $1 billion, but we spent quite a bit of money, almost $1 billion. We put Make Taste Not Waste at Super Bowl. So we took your football idea. It was at the Super Bowl, and we are continuing that. And the only insight that we are working off of is that we all buy food with good intentions, but life gets in the way. Whatever happens, whatever your reason is, life gets in the way. We all throw it guilt-free, because we are a mass marketing company. We need everybody to feel sort of not guilty about it. So that's the insight that we put at the Super Bowl. That's the insight we have on TV right now, again, just behind Make Taste Not Waste. And honestly, if I had $1 billion, I would just keep continuing to put money behind Make Taste Not Waste, because sort of, and all of them who are living at home have an impact inside the home and have an impact outside of their homes as well. So that's all I would say in 10 seconds.
You guys were a great panel. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Priya. Thank you, Sophie. And back to you, Lily. I've learned a lot today. Thanks for the chance.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Brett, and thank you so much to our panelists for your insights and candor. It's been so great to hear from both individuals and organizations who are really keeping positionality and human-centered design at the front and center of this discussion. We so appreciate all that you're doing and feel really lucky that we get to work with you. So I want to thank all of you out there in the room from across the world for taking some time out of your day to join us. We will be sending out an email with a link to a recording of today's webinar, along with some highlights from the discussion. And remember that this is the 5th installment of our 7-part series, digging into the key action areas of the roadmap to 2030. So we're headed into the home stretch now. Our next installment is on October 20th, so mark your calendars. It focuses on the 6th key action area of the roadmap to 2030, which is strengthen food rescue. Just 3% of surplus food ends up being donated, and most food donations are processed, shelf-stable items that are easier to transport and store. As a result, many food relief agencies end up purchasing fruits, vegetables, and other perishables rather than rely on donations. What solutions can help further the rescue of high-quality, nutritious food and increase the capacity of food relief agencies to get it to the people who need it most? Our moderator will be Karen Hanner from the Global Food Banking Network, and our panelists will include Jasmine Crow, founder and CEO of Gooder, which offers a technology platform to get food at risk of going to waste to donor organizations. It's going to be a great discussion, and we've just added the link in the chat box, so please feel free to register if you haven't done so already. If you have any feedback or questions about today's discussion, please feel free to reach out to us at insights@refed.com. And don't forget to sign up for the new Refed Food Waste Action Network. It's a free network for people from across the food system and from diverse backgrounds to connect and engage about food waste reduction. We have some really great programming coming up in the next couple of months, and people are already making fruitful connections to help move their work forward. Thank you all for joining, and have a great rest of your day.